Crawford is a human, just like me. We bleed the same. He just uglier. That motherfucker ugly. Ugly. Fucking ugly. I don't know how this man gets fucking. I don't even know how he get John. Like, I don't. Niggas ugly. Shit. But
man.
he even fights ugly. I'm gonna be real with y'all. But, man, we're gonna have to call that out when it happens.
Wow. Teofimo Lopez says Terence Crawford, the ninja, is ugly. You heard it. The ninja is ugly. He's ugly. That's what I want to talk about in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Listen, best in the business, and it's not even close. Y'all know I was going to talk about this as soon as I seen it. How come in the world of boxing, I always got to be the first? I'm not talking about anything that happens after this. Nobody's talking about this. Leave it to your boy, Boxing Ego. And all of a sudden, when I put my video out, other people, they're going to put their video out. Teofimo Lopez did an interview with Punch Drunk Boxing. And the host gave Teofimo an idea. He said, since you are the super champion at 140 pounds, the division underneath 147, Crawford having the belt, the WBO belt at 47. Crawford has had that belt since he moved up to the welterweight division. How do I know this? Because I was at the fight. Terence Crawford fought Jeff Horn out of Australia in his first fight at welterweight for the WBO title, and he just unified and became undisputed with Errol Spence Jr. in his last fight. He got stripped, but that was the IBF belt. So Terence Crawford has successfully defended and even unified that belt now with the Errol Spence fight that just took place last year. Terence Crawford has defended that belt successfully multiple times. Some people even called it the Top Rank belt. Crawford got the belt when he was with Top Rank. So, and for the people who are regulars on my channel, just follow along with me. I got to give these cliff notes and refreshers because not everyone knows their boxing and knows the pedigree and the history of each fighter. So that's why I do that. Terence Crawford became WBO champion, all stoppages, all knockouts in the welterweight division, and he's the man. I have Crawford at number 1 pound for pound. So the host said to Teofimo, hey, since you beat Josh Taylor, aka you're the WBO champion, you're the super champion at 140. Crawford is the champion at 147. If you move up to 47, how come you don't petition within the WBO? And within the WBO, you could petition to become Crawford's mandatory, because the WBO has basically a rule where if you're holding their super belt in the division underneath and you decide to move up, basically you get first dibs, or you usually get an early look at the champion that has the WBO belt in the higher division. Teofimo responded, oh yeah, you just gave me an idea. Wait. So it took a YouTuber to suggest this for Teofimo to think about this idea, to petition to the WBO. So for me, my honest opinion, that shows me that Teo doesn't really want to fight Terence Crawford. Reason being, my logic is, if you truly wanted to fight Terence Crawford, beyond just a call out, beyond just using his name, right? And it's funny because Teo always says that, oh, these guys are mentioning my name for clout, but then he's mentioning Terence Crawford's name, and it doesn't seem like you truly want to fight him, which I'll explain in this video. Stay tuned to the end. But for me, a dead ringer and a telltale sign that you don't really want to fight Terence Bud Crawford is the mere fact that Terence Crawford is at 47 and he has the WBO belt, as I've already established in this video. And it took somebody suggesting it to you for you to consider, hey, why don't I just petition and move up, and then I'll get dibs on that Crawford belt? Because if you really wanted something, you're going to know that rule. For example, Alexander Usyk, he's one boxer that immediately comes to mind. We know for a fact Alexander Usyk, he's about that life. Alexander Usyk, he's down to fight anyone. He's fought 6'6" Joshua twice, 24 rounds with him, big puncher. He fought a big puncher in Daniel Dubois. He's about to fight Tyson Fury. Usyk's not ducking smoke. So I think he's a great example here. And the reality is Alexander Usyk was the man at cruiserweight. He was undisputed with that WBO belt, won the World Boxing Super Series, beat Tony Bellew. And then when he moved up to heavyweight, he knew he could press Anthony Joshua's line by being the super WBO champion and undisputed in the previous division. So he knew by moving up, because that's what he decided. I had done everything. He did what Evander Holyfield did. Olympian, knocked out some dudes, great wins at cruiserweight. Cruiserweight historically has not been a popping division. Like, there's been some legendary fighters that have fought at cruiserweight, but it's usually not a stacked division where you have several, like Evander Holyfield could have just stayed at cruiserweight forever and finished his career at cruiserweight. For the bigger opportunities, he had to go fight bigger men. The Mike Tyson. Hey, it's me, Mike Tyson. I'm from the Catskill Mountains. I'm going to fight Evander. I'm going to fight Evander Holyfield. And I'm going to eat him. I'm going to bite his ear. I'm hungry. I want some hominy, right? He had to look to the legends, you know, the George Foreman's and Lennox Lewis fights, the Mike Tyson fights, my boy lights out James Toney. You know, he had to look upward, and that's how cruiserweight usually gets. David Haye, another fighter who was very talented at cruiserweight, end up moving to heavyweight and trying to do some work up there, etc. So Usyk did just that. Usyk moved from cruiserweight, and the point I'm making is he knew by being the undisputed champion and being the super WBO champion that he had dibs on the Anthony Joshua. So if you recall, Alexander Usyk kept telling everybody that Joshua needs to fight him. Joshua needs to fight him. I want the Joshua fight, right? And then he became Joshua's mandatory, and Joshua had to fight him. So that's how that works. So Teofimo, having this WBO strap, he has to know the rules. He's the boxer. You know, you're in ownership of this sanctioning body, their particular hardware. You know Paco, who is the head of the WBO, and it took for someone to suggest you petitioning to fight Terence Crawford, who again has the WBO belt, as you guys see in this picture, WBO belt. It shouldn't have to take someone telling you to inspire. So for me, that signifies that Crawford is too much and Teo doesn't really want to fight him. Now, again, I'm always the first. Teofimo outspoken. The man just used the N-word and said the ninja is ugly. And he focused for a portion of that interview on how ugly Terence Crawford was. And then he said he fights ugly, which was very foolish. I mean, to call a man ugly when this is not a looks contest, I find it a bit weird. You know, first he said that Gervonta Davis had DSL lips. Weird. And then now, as he's talking about Terence Crawford, he's saying the ninja is ugly. And he did use the N-word. You gotta listen. So watch the beginning of this video again, or watch the interview, and you'll listen closely. You'll hear him say the N-word. Now, we've heard Teofimo use the N-word before. In fact, in Fresno, when he had that run-in with Devin Haney, he used it, right? So we know he's no stranger to this. But it's just a weird look for Teofimo to be talking like this for a multitudes of reasons. Like, for one, we'll put the N word aside because different people, there's different at best sensitivity levels to the usage of the word and who could use the word. So let me set that completely aside for a minute and just say, why would a fighter be concerned with another man's looks? How Terence Crawford looks? You guys let me know that in the comment section. Like, what on earth does that have to do? Like, you're talking about fighting Crawford and you're saying you could beat him, and then you start off by saying he's human just like me and he bleeds just like me, and you're making it sound like you want smoke with him, the man that just beat Errol Spence in a defiant and braggadocious way, and then you randomly say, oh, but he's ugly, he hecka ugly, he's super ugly, he ugly, this ninja is ugly. I find that comment to be way out of place. You know what I'm saying? What about the fight? I don't care about how the man looks. Like, I don't, like, when I watch boxing, I don't just sit. This ain't Miss America. I don't care how these fighters look. I don't care if you have teeth, no teeth. If you can scrap, you can scrap. One thing we know for sure, Bud Crawford can do that. He whips A's and he takes names. He whips some arse, right? And he's taking names. One thing we know is Bud Crawford is a pugilist. So I find it very weird that Teofimo decides to use the N-word, but in addition to using the N-word, focus on what he feels personally Bud's attractive levelness, you know, his attractiveness level is. That's weird. That's weird. You're calling the man out, and then it's almost like you purposefully trying to sidetrack things or like make light of the situation. The other thing, let's address all the elephants in the room. Before the fight, you called out Crawford. You said nothing about fighting Terence Crawford at a catchweight. Nothing at all. Post-fight, I thought you lost to Jermaine Ortiz, and post-fight, you're talking about, they said, I think it was Bernardo Osuna of ESPN. He said, hey, you've been calling out Crawford. You've been clout chasing him basically and using this man's name. So what about the Crawford fight? What's cracking? And then randomly out of nowhere, he says, yeah, Bud could fight. We could fight at a catchweight. And then when he was walking with his son backstage, there was a media scrum and media members were following Teofimo Lopez. And they said, oh, what about Crawford? And he was like, yeah, Crawford at a catchweight. If you listen closely, one of the media members, they corrected him. He said, Crawford said he's not going to fight you at a catchweight. So Teo is pumping this catchweight fight, which it makes no sense. First of all, let's be real with something. How do you bark up a tree and pick on a bigger man than you and then ask for a catchweight when you're the one that initiated contact? I never seen Terence Crawford put it out in the open to the media, hey, I want to fight Teofimo Lopez. He wasn't looking down at you. I mean, he did mention maybe fighting Gervonta Davis when that conversation, but that's because Gervonta Davis is the face of boxing. But I never heard him mention, oh, I'm going after Teofimo Lopez. So you're barking up that tree. You got to go see him. You got to go see him. And then here's further proof, as if you needed more proof that Teo doesn't really want to fight Crawford. Teo, when he was on this interview, the host is giving him ideas about how he can corner Crawford by asking for and petitioning for, through the WBO, petitioning to fight Bud Crawford, right? He's giving you that suggestion. And he was like, oh yeah, I might do that. I think that's a good idea. But here's the thing. The reality is you already said you wanted to fight Crawford at a catchweight. So these things are all over the place. Post-fight, you were basically asking for a catchweight. But then if you use your super WBO champion status at 140, you would have to move up to 47 to influence and petition to be Crawford's mandatory within the WBO. So which one is it? Do you want to fight the man or not? And again, it sounds good until you get in the ring with Bud Crawford. I know firsthand, I ain't fight him, but I've been to several of Bud's fights. I covered it live. The man was born for this. And let's be real. Let's just be honest. You seen what he did to Errol Spence, who was a big welterweight, right? You seen you're only as good as your last fight in this sport. In this game of boxing, you are only as good as your last performance. Teofimo, at best, barely scraped by Jermaine Ortiz to the point where I thought he lost. You cannot beat this man on the screen with performances like that, right? It's impossible. I'm not saying Bud's impossible to beat, but you can't beat him with whatever. You couldn't even cut off the ring on Jermaine Ortiz as a southpaw. And here's the kicker. Jermaine Ortiz ain't even a southpaw. He's not even a southpaw. He did that strategically because I guess he's ambidextrous. But guess who else is ambidextrous? Oh, yeah, the man you see on the screen. And shout out to Jermaine Ortiz. I thought he won the fight with Teo. Jermaine Ortiz, no disrespect. You're not as good ambidextrous as a switch hitter as this man on the screen, Terence Bud Crawford. So again, if Teofimo, conventional wisdom, boxing is a what have you done for me lately sport. If the switch hitting of an inferior Jermaine Ortiz, and I'm not saying inferior, but he hasn't done what Crawford has done, and he's not as good as Crawford as a whole, and he's not the switch hitter that Crawford is. So an inferior switch hitter in Jermaine Ortiz gave you all the problems in the world, and that was his first fight in a new weight class, right? He came up from 135. You're talking about fighting Bud Dang Crawford, who has the experience, all stoppages in the welterweight division, all stoppages, all knockouts, more experience. You would have to move up 7 pounds. You're just not beating him, bro. I don't care what none of y'all talking about. And we could bet whatever. So T.O. could keep saying this stuff, but rematch Jermaine Ortiz. That seemed like a fight. I guarantee you, because the Crawford fight's not happening. I don't even know if Bud would work with Top Rank again based on their history. I don't know. But I would pay for this fight. If Terence Crawford and T.O. were going to fight, I would pay for it. Just because of the namesake and because it would be funny to me. And sometimes I like to be humor. I like entertainment, and it would definitely entertain me. But T.O. using the N-word, focusing in on Crawford's looks rather than how you would beat him and things like that, is looking real bad for the takeover. Point blank, period. I'm calling Teofimo's bluff when it comes to fighting Crawford. There's one thing he can do. Prove me wrong. Fight Crawford next. It's that simple. But I found the interview to be very weird. I think focusing in, I mean, we're supposed to be all grown men. You focus in on how Crawford looks and if he's cute to you or if he's ugly. You talking about the Crawford face card, and we talking about fights. And in addition to that, you're beefing with Rolly, and you basically stole Rolly's joke, if I'm being honest. See, I know everything that goes on in my sport, and the reality is, if anything, I mean, I don't agree with calling somebody ugly and all. I mean, it's like, what are we, in grade school? You know what I mean? So that's not even my steez. But at the end of the day, that's Rolly's shtick. Rolly was saying, oh, Errol Spence is ugly. He needs to fight me. Terence Crawford is super ugly. He needs to fight me. So you basically stole his joke. Bottom line, T.O. has one option. He want to use the N-word, call Crawford the N-word in the ring, and fight him. Let me know what you guys think. Who would win? Am I tripping? You know I ain't tripping. But if you think I'm tripping, let me know in the comment section what I said that was inaccurate. I promise you this fight won't happen next, and it's really not because of Crawford. It's not. Crawford You know, why would he be afraid to, if he just fought Errol Spence and he wants to fight Canelo, why would he be afraid to fight a man 7 pounds under him who just looked bad in 2 of his last 3 fights? And people said he lost to Sandor Martin with no power, a good boxer, and he just lost in a lot of people's minds and based on the eye test and how they scored it to Jermaine Ortiz. So his only significant win is Josh Taylor, and I think Josh Taylor was weight drained, if you ask me. So, you know, T.O.'s talking can't really save him from this. And again, who gave T.O. the pass to use the N-word, and why am I always the one talking about this stuff first? You guys answer these. You're going to answer some of these questions in the comment section.